25,000 people used to live here. Now it's a ghost town.
It's been 1 year since early access launched, and here we are. I had hoped that this video would have an entirely different tone, but as a result of lack of communication, long wait times for content, and poor balancing decisions, we get a video detailing what happened and what Boundary could have been. So, what happened to Boundary? When early access launched, the community was bustling, players were enjoying what was available, and overall everything was going smoothly. That was until players got done with the grind. The first player to show that they actually completed everything was Pugsby, and that only took him 10 days into early access. Once others finished the grind, some of them left, but most of them stuck around for the first patch, hoping for more content and to keep the momentum going. But as far as content, it would take a long time to see anything new outside the limited time modes that we already knew and played. The first taste of actual new content was in June, when we received a new shotgun, new map, and new limited time mode. However, the next time we received something was in January of this year, when we got the gallery and the PvE mode. All this time, the devs were doing patches and balancing, which started off good. For example, the SMG was far too strong when early access launched. However, through a couple patches, it made it okay. It still hits hard, but it became manageable. As time went on, the devs made some changes that I disagreed with, and it left a bad taste in my mouth. For example, the July patch changed how some pods worked, and the December patch made them even worse. Along with that, they changed how backpacks worked. The only real positive that came from the December patch was the disabling of ADS when flying at high speeds. These patches took forever to come out, and it would have been tolerable if communication was better, or at least feedback was taken into consideration. Speaking of which, I want to talk about how the communication was subpar. First and foremost though, I cannot speak on what the community managers went through, and I hear their situation was not an easy one to be in, so I appreciate all the efforts they were trying to make. That being said, communication was terrible. I remember asking about a roadmap for things and was basically told that it wasn't going to happen in case problems arose and shifted the timeline for development. I don't know if something did happen, but I do know that PvE was an example of missing deadlines. The dev said in the Q&A that the PvE would come out in July, but instead we got it a whole 6 months later in January. Also from the Q&A, the PS5 port was getting worked on and finished up in May, yet 11 months later we finally got an update that it was getting finished and getting certified. And now, here we are, 1 year into early access and all that momentum lost. You may be asking what Boundary could have been like. Well, let me tell you. I've heard from a bunch of players that Boundary should be like this, or Boundary should be like that. Really, it could have been both. It could have been both tactical, but also more arcadey and fun. Boundary experimented with a more grounded mode that changed movement, and in my opinion, it was a good start. With enough adjusting, it could have been a nice option for those who wanted a more tactical experience with less flying around. At the same time, Boundary could have experimented with different modes where the established movement could have been used in different ways. Having a payload game mode, for example, could see certain operators used more than others. The big three that I seen while playing was Spike, Leeway, and Probe. Sure, those three will be used in the game mode where you defend a payload, but if developed properly, you could equally see Doc and Fort using their equipment to become even more useful than other game modes. Something else I seen or heard somewhere was using what was unique to Boundary more effectively. Something that could have done this, in my opinion, was allowing for destruction to play a bigger part in destruction. Could you imagine having a team deathmatch where you were able to pressurize the map to make everyone grounded, and then being able to set something off to go back to zero gravity while changing the map entirely? Okay, that may be too much, especially for a small development team, but I think the devs should encourage thinking outside the box and rewarding that with possibilities to make gameplay feel different. Moving from the hypothetical into a realistic future, what can Boundary still be? While I have no faith in the development of Boundary at this point, they can still deliver something to avoid the scam tag. I think Boundary can add new weapons. I've seen stuff on ArtStation that can inspire new weapons, or the devs can make versions of weapons already discussed within the community. I'm looking at you, G11. I think Boundary can add new maps. I feel like there are some maps that have been conceptualized but not fully realized, and with the assets already in the game, you can play around with different layouts. I think Boundary can add new game modes. I think a hardpoint or a King of the Hill mode would fit nicely, especially with pressurized room. Something else they can easily add is a free-for-all or multi-team mode where you have to work together against other teams. Not saying it's a BR, just multi-team in the environment that's already available. I think Boundary can add custom lobbies, maybe even with server preference. To be honest, I'm not sure how difficult this would be as far as server stability, but that's kind of the point of early access. And while we're at it, maybe allow new game modes to be played. And I'm talking about Michael Myers, Infected, maybe Gun Game, something that can be fun for players who are already done grinding through stuff. Lastly, I think Boundary can add new operators, at least one. It's been a while since we got a new operator, and I think Boundary can make some adjustments and additions with the introduction of a new operator. Maybe give them the jug shotgun that Doc exclusively has, and maybe one of the new weapons that gets added. I don't know why, but introducing an operator that can run at enemies with a shield and a sword sounds extremely fun. A space equivalent of a riot shield, basically. Maybe it's just me, I don't know. Anyway, Boundary has lost all the momentum it had, and a lot of the community does not trust the devs. That goes for me too, so until they prove otherwise, I'll be enjoying other games that show more promise. I would love to be delightfully surprised with a Boundary comeback, but I cannot see that happening right now. That's all that I had. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. I debated on covering why Boundary was failing because I didn't want to make the situation even worse, if that was even possible. I would love to hear your comments on things down in the comment section below. Also, I'm swiftly wrapping up the school semester, so I'll try to make more content as I get more free time, but it's been really rough with all the things going on involving school. That's all I have for today, and I hope you have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next one.